I want to make sure that I don't come across like I'm the victim, because we have two victims here. And the second thing is that all of what happened on that day leading up to this event was precipitated on one idea, and that is that Halyna and I had something profound in common. And that is, we both assumed the gun was empty.
Your emotions are so clearly so right there on the surface. You felt shock. You felt anger. You felt sadness. Do you feel guilt?
No. I feel that there is, I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Well, I would go to any lengths to undo what happened. I would go to any lengths to undo what happened.
Okay. How is everybody? Wanted to talk to you today about Alec Baldwin. Now, we know that Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer for the Rust set, of which Alec Baldwin was a producer and an actor, in October of 2021, there was a fatal accident on the set where Alec Baldwin was handed a gun, not by the armorer, pointed the gun, cocked the gun, and fired and killed Halyna Hutchins, the cinematographer, and injured the Assistant Director Joel Souza. So Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, is going on trial this week for involuntary manslaughter. We know that the set was riddled with problems. One member of the set left over safety issues, mainly around the pandemic and pay. But we've heard other reports that people on the set were firing off live rounds in between shots, meaning when they're setting up a shot, it's very boring on the set. A lot of the time is preparation and getting ready for the next shot, and that people were amusing themselves by playing target practice. Was that the reason there was live ammo? There was no need for it, as far as I know. But what I really want to talk about is who saw this coming. And I would say every single person who lives in New York City, who follows the news, anybody who followed the news in general, celebrity news, could have seen this coming. And often when we're looking at true crime stories, I hear, well, their personality doesn't mean anything. Their behavior doesn't mean anything. It wasn't done within the context of the crime that they're being charged for. But I would say that Alec Baldwin's history of rage and his history of exploding when he feels slighted has everything to do. And I would even go everything to do with this crime. And I would go even farther to say that his marriage to Hillary Baldwin Thomas of Boston, a woman who for many, many years went around telling everyone that she was Spanish and performing a fake Spanish accent for everyone, and Baldwin supporting that and adding to it and imitating her accent in interviews. Suggests that he is okay with perpetrating a fantasy, and things are so because he says it's so. So it's not just that he participated in Hilaria, not Hillary Baldwin, Hilaria Baldwin. She even changed the spelling and pronunciation of her name to sell this hoax, I'd call it, is that he reacted very poorly when it was exposed. So when it was exposed, he went after the press and said, consider the source. I mean, so what I'm saying is Alec Baldwin wants us to believe that this gun magically fired by itself in the same way he wants us to believe that because he says Hillary Baldwin is from Spain, we should all believe it. He's the source. And when he's challenged, he gets very angry. So I want to start with, before we really get into some of the arguments that are being made around this Russ shooting and some of his supporters, or one of his celebrity supporters, I want to get into his history of getting into public rage incidents. And I thought this one was the most interesting. And there's so many to choose from. He's had so many incidents of rage that there's a lot to choose from. But I chose this incident, because I thought it was the most telling. And it happened when he was with Hilaria. So excuse me.
Another day, another Alec Baldwin meltdown, just one day.
Listen to how it starts. Another day, another Alec Baldwin meltdown. Even Good Morning America is tired of his rage issues at this point. But listen to the way this goes.
After using a gay slur when cursing out a photographer.
Yeah, the actor sets his sights on a local TV reporter who apparently once had a run-in with Baldwin's wife. ABC's Rob Nelson is here to sort it all out. Sort it if you can, Rob.
Oh, yeah, it's a mess as always, isn't it, with Mr. Baldwin? Yeah, this is a very interesting story here. Alec Baldwin having a run-in with the press is certainly not a new headline. But what is different this time around is the reason behind the drama, a fender bender on a city street, and now even the temporary suspension of Baldwin's cable news show.
Get the out of here.
Taking his public blowouts with.
So I don't know if my internet is going to cooperate with me today. If I have so many things to show you that I may have to cut this short and try it another time if this is not going to cooperate, or I might have to take a break. I'm not sure. Let's see how it goes. But it clearly does not look good, but let's see how it goes. Not a good sign there.
Trying to get into his car outside his New York apartment on Friday with his wife and 3-month-old baby, the famously hot-tempered actor got in the face of a female New York TV reporter whom his
You know what? I'm going to take a break and try to fix this. I'm really disappointed. Well, now it looks like it might be going. Let's see how it goes. But like I said, if this continues, I might have to take a break. My apologies.
wife says hit her in the face with a microphone a day earlier.
You're the one that almost hit my wife with the microphone in the face?
I asked you a question. You want to apologize to her? I asked you a question.
Still fuming, Baldwin brings over nearby cops, demanding they take action.
I do want to press charges against her. She assaulted my wife.
The ruckus did. He tries to leave his parking spot.
Johnny, is it?
Friday's blow-up is just the latest in a string of caught-on-camera tirades by one of Hollywood's most notorious hotheads.
Get away from my wife and the baby with the camera.
On Thursday, Baldwin caused an uproar by allegedly using an anti-gay slur against a photographer.
Come on!
So this is the part I'd like you to pay attention to. Not that he did this, not that he made this slur, but watch his MO right after this, okay?
Which Baldwin denies, saying he was misheard. A Twitter firestorm erupted.
So do you get that? So it went by so quickly, you could almost miss it. So what he's saying is that everyone on the street, and you saw it was a pretty big group of press, they all were wrong. Everybody was wrong and misheard because he knows what he said. So very similar to Hillary or Hilaria Baldwin. Everybody's wrong because it is so. Everyone in the street misheard. Everyone's hearing failed them all at the same time, and they all misheard what he said, and he didn't say it until he admits he did say it. Spoiler alert.
With gay activist groups and even CNN's Anderson Cooper chiming in. Cooper tweeted, "Wow, Alec Baldwin shows his true colors yet again. How is he going to lie and excuse his anti-gay slurs this time?" Baldwin later apologized. And a longer mea culpa came Friday night when Baldwin released a statement confirming his new cable news show has been taken off.
That's basically what I wanted to show you there. Just unreal. Unreal. He didn't say it until he did say it. And then it is so. So now this gun magically fires by itself. He would never point a gun at anyone. Although all the available facts tell us he did point a gun at someone. So I'm very interested in how this is going to play out in court. I've been talking about Donna Adelson on this channel and how I think she's going to handle her trial using her age and using the public sympathy. I would think that Alec Baldwin is going to use a lot of his acting skills. We're going to see some crying, some boo-hooing like we did in the George Stephanopoulos interview. But he cannot hide his arrogance, his narcissism. All those things are very apparent. So I don't think he's quite as a good actor as some of the other actors we've seen get away with things in court. And he's had a long line of incidences of rage. So what do I think happened here? Because this was a scene that did not call for him to take out a gun and fire it. So what was he doing? And the answer to that comes in the beginning of his interview in Vermont. So just to let you know, after this incident, he and his wife posted some very insensitive comments, posted a lot of pictures with their kids, especially one with Hillary Baldwin and her son. Halyna Hutchins had a son saying, oh, he needs mommy time, something That's not a direct quote, something along those lines. They went to Vermont and they went house hunting, apparently. The reports were that they bought a house in Vermont. So I think one of the more ridiculous interviews that came out of this was their interview in Vermont. But he tells an interesting detail about the night before Halyna was killed on set by Baldwin. And it's just one little detail. And he says, she was my friend. So both Hilaria and Alec go on to scold the press for not mentioning Halyna Hutchins' name. But Alec Baldwin in interviews, all the interviews I saw in preparation for this, where he's talking about this, never mentions Halyna Hutchins' name. And a statement analysis like Peter Hyatt would say that that shows some distance and some kind of tension in the relationship. And I would agree that if you're pointing a gun at someone, even if the gun is your finger, you are in a fantasy of what it would be like, right? What would it be like to have a gun? What would it be like to fire a gun? So he's half in fantasy, half in reality. And who was the aim? And we know right before this, the day before Alec Baldwin shot Halyna Hutchins in this terrible accident, he had a gun in another scene and told people to move aside, that he didn't want to aim a gun at them. So what happened between the day before and the next day to make Alec Baldwin totally disregard gun safety? And if I had to guess, Halyna Hutchins made Alec Baldwin, slighted him in some way. He felt slighted by her, because we know that every time he feels slighted, and I put the link in, I don't think I'll play it, it's so awful, but when Alec Baldwin's daughter was 12, he left her a message where he's calling her a rude little pig, telling her how stupid she is because she didn't call him back, I believe, something with the phone. So we know he blows up over issues like this. He's slighted. He's going to get back. He's going to blow up and show his power and his rage. So here's Hillary Baldwin and Alec Baldwin. I love the way they're dressed. This is so Hollywood's idea of rustic, but okay, with their new outfits they get their outfits for where they are, for location. So they have to dress the part if they're in Vermont, I guess. The plaid is on fleek. Here we go.
Let's go. I will. What do you want to know?
All right, Alec, what's the current state of what's going on with the case?
I'm not allowed to make any comments because it's an ongoing investigation. I've been ordered by the Sheriff's Department in Santa Fe. I can't answer any questions about the investigation. I can't. It's an active investigation in terms of a woman dying. She was my friend. The day I arrived in Santa Fe to start.
But his friend has no name. No name for the friend. The nameless, faceless friend. But I'm not so sure. I think something happened the night before. I would bet on it. If I had to, I would bet on it.
I took her to dinner with Joel, the director. We were a very, very, well-oiled crew shooting a film together, and then this horrible event happened. Now, I've been told multiple times, don't make any comments about the ongoing investigation, and I can't. That's it.
And you met
what are the questions that you have other than that?
You met with the I'm afraid to forget her name at the moment, but you met with her family.
Look at Hillary Baldwin with her phone out, photographing the paparazzi as if she's a Scientologist. How aggressive. But you notice that when she steps close to Alec Baldwin, he's like, excuse me. What is shrinking violet? He has no trouble telling his wife where his boundaries are there. But she's like a pit bull in this interview. Really, really crazy.
Family,
Halyna,
Yes,
her
I met
name is
with her
Halyna. If you're spending this much time waiting for us, you should
don't
know
know
her
her
name.
name?
Her name is Halyna.
Halyna Hutchins. I met with her husband Matthew and her son. Yeah, that's right.
And how did that meeting go?
I wouldn't know how to characterize it. They're mortified.
You guys, you know what? No details.
Would you do me a favor? I'm gonna answer the question.
Well, I appreciate that he was probably very upset.
The guy is overwhelmed with grief. This is something that there are incidental accidents on film sets from time to time, but nothing like this. This is a 1 in a trillion episode. It's a 1 in a trillion event. And so he is in shock.
See, it's a 1 in a trillion. No, I would say it was pretty common when you ignore gun safety. I think those accidents would be pretty common if everyone ignored gun safety rules. But now he'd like us to believe it's a 1 in a trillion occurrence. Something magical happened that day. Something out of the norm, almost supernatural, he wants us to believe. That the gun had a power of its own. And I will deal with in 1 second this rumor that Alec Baldwin's camp put out that the gun was somehow defective.
Shock. He has a 9-year-old son. We are, in constant contact with him because we're very worried about his family and his kid. And as I said, we're eagerly awaiting for the sheriff's department to tell us what their investigation has yielded. What else do you have?
Would you ever work on another film set that involves firearms of that nature?
I couldn't answer that question. I really don't have any. I have no sense of it at all. I do know that an ongoing.
Hillary Baldwin cannot stay away from the camera. She can't stay away from him. She constantly wants to be the subject of the interview. But did you hear he went out to dinner the night before? What happened at that dinner? That's what I'd like to know. But I find it very interesting that he's in constant contact to check on Halyna Hutchins' son, as if her family really wants to hear from him. He's a great comfort. So he's presenting himself like he's a great comfort to the family, checking in. I think the right thing to do in this situation, and I understand that there's some settlement between Baldwin and the family and that he's selling his $17 million house in the Hamptons. I think that's where it is. Excuse me if I'm wrong on that. And I'm sure that's part of the reason. And also to pay for the upcoming lawyer bills. Of course, Alec Baldwin's trial was set to start August 6th of this year. Now it's been moved because there's been a change in judge. But I would think a lot of his money is getting eaten up by legal bills. All right, let's watch a little bit more of this. This is so wild, this interview.
Ongoing effort to limit the use of firearms on film sets is something I'm extremely interested in. Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, he's extremely interested in virtue signaling about from now on about firearms after totally disregarding safety rules. And pretty much every person who's familiar with guns, Steve Wolf, gun expert, has given numerous interviews about how nothing else matters. Even if the gun were defective, it wouldn't matter. Doesn't matter how the live rounds got there. All that matters is we know that Alec Baldwin disregarded the chain of command by not taking the gun directly from the armorer. He also barred the armorer from the church where they were filming. And that he disregarded gun safety by cocking a gun and then pointing it at someone. So it's a 3-step process. What he wants you to think is that it just went off and that the bullet just happened to hit Joel Souza and Halyna Hutchins. And they furthered this narrative in the press with this idea that this gun was broken. So what happened was when the FBI tested the gun, and they tested it so vigorously that parts of it were broken, my understanding it's been reconstructed now for trial. But Alec Baldwin, when he heard the gun had been broken, said, see, it was defective. And he also tweeted out right after this that he was handed the gun. Alec Baldwin was handed the gun. So as you can see, it's everyone else's fault but his own. And as a celebrity, he's been a celebrity for most of his life. He hasn't had to take any responsibility. It's all been dealt with for him, paid off, PR'd away. Another appearance on Saturday Night Live will solve it. But at first I thought, oh, he's never going to be convicted in this. He's going to cry on the stand. But I'm not so sure that people aren't tired of this, of celebrities getting away with things. And I'm not so sure how well he would do should he testify. The more he talks, the worse it is. When he gave that interview to George Stephanopoulos, pretty much every legal talking head came out and said it was a disaster. Terrible idea. Bad choice. But he does have one supporter, Mickey Rourke, another guy with rage issues. Been accused of SA of his... I think it's just I'm not sure if it's SA or it's just harming his partners. Mickey Rourke says, hang tough, my brother. And for those listening on podcast, the spelling is atrocious. And the grammar and spelling and just the whole thing is really funny. What there, THERE, effing to you is dead effing wrong. Everyone knows the responsibility is 100% responsibility is on the gun armored. You're a big name movie star, so of course you're going to throw your they're going, it's spelled YHER. They're going to throw your behind, my word, not his, under the bus. It's not fair, even a little bit. That's the world we live in. Your day of innocence will come. Is that what it is? Your day of innocence will be a national holiday, Alec Baldwin's Day of Innocence. God will see to that. Jeep the faith. Come on, guys. Everybody jeep the faith. Don't let the little people hurt you. Hang tough, brother. Asm there for you, amigo. L&R, Mickey Rourke. And I'm not making light. I understand that Halyna Hutchins died and she has a son without a mother, but some of this is outrageous and ridiculous. The people supporting Alec Baldwin. I mean, come on. So, and this is evidence shows that Baldwin failed. This is from the legal documents, failed to appear for mandatory firearms training and firearms safety. So remember, he is the producer prior to filming. And it goes on to describe that he had a 30-minute training session and that on the set he was consumed with his phone and FaceTiming and not present. But even if Alec Baldwin has done so many movies with guns that he should know better. So, yes, he should have paid attention, but that's a small part. And Hannah Gutierrez Reed was supposed to get $8,000 for her time. I mean, that's incredibly low pay. And I understand it's a low budget movie, but for her time on the set as an armorer, she had double duty doing other work. So, very disorganized, troubled set, of which Alec Baldwin, whether he's that kind of producer, that's what he said in his George Stephanopoulos interview, whether he's that kind of producer or not, he's in charge. So let me try to show you one other thing. Before I think I'm going to probably keep it pretty brief today. But let's look. So if you do not know the whole history of Hilaria Baldwin, and this Lucky 7 on YouTube did a great compilation. And what I thought was so effective about this compilation is it shows how Alec Baldwin really sold her hoax. So she was hoping to, I guess it's make herself, I guess, more interesting. And obviously, it seems obvious to my eye that Alec Baldwin has a type, that this is his type. He likes Spanish women. And so he'll take a fake Spanish woman. As long as, can you imagine having to pretend every day of your life and talk in that accent? Even in that clip that we saw in Vermont, Hillary is talking with a slight accent, especially in the beginning of that interview. And as she got angrier and angrier, she loses the accent. But here's a little history of her faking the Spanish accent, her Spanish heritage.
Hillary, whatever we're calling her, Baldwin, breaking her silence on accusations that she faked her Spanish heritage for years.
Want her to speak in Spanish? Let's do
Let's do it first together. We're just gonna do what we do. Okay?
No, do it in Spanish. I mean,
Do me a favor. We're gonna do what we do together.
Do you know what I mean?
My wife will literally say lately, in order to do it.
So they're going to do what they do together. So this is their thing. I'll talk in an accent, and he's like, no. She's like, Alec Baldwin is like, no, you're going to talk in Spanish. Even better. I don't think I would have half the issue with this whole thing if he just fessed up and admitted it, that they were both caught. And he just say, I like Spanish women. We thought it would make her more interesting. Sorry, guys. But instead, he's attacking the press. And he attacks the people that mention it, too, that talk about it. Bizarre.
Express the kind of sentiment of having a fifth child. She'll literally say to me, she'll go, Alec, I feel that someone is missing. There is someone else that is meant to be.
Everything so amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I look at her, I'm like, really? Someone's missing?
Ever. I had like 35 or 40 of my family members come from Spain, which equals really good party. Really good party.
Yesterday, and we're trying to all pronounce her name. It's not Hilaria. It's not Ilaria.
It's not even Hilaria. There is no H.
There's no H.
So pretend there's no H. It's Ilaria. It's like hola.
Yeah.
In Spanish, you say hola. It's Hola. Nobody says hola unless you have a really bad accent. But so it's Ilaria.
And then the next day, she's like, I don't have to pee at all today.
Alex? Muy mal.
Alec and Eli. What time? 12 o'clock? My wife is from Spain. And she said,
To you, you're Spanish as well as American.
What do you do? Oh, you do the flamenco.
10 years old.
Wow.
Oh,
Your English is
Well, I grew up
impeccable.
speaking both English and Spanish.
Okay. And you didn't have a TV,
I never
apparently.
had a TV.
Which is probably why Alec likes you, because you didn't know
but
anything
I did
about the
see
show.
Working Girl.
Uh-huh.
I did see.
Right. She had no idea who Alec Baldwin was, but she did know him from Working Girl. doesn't even make any sense. I just want to know how this relationship works between Hillary and Alec. How does it work? Because it seems to be two flowers and no gardener. Do you know what I mean? Who's taking care of their incredible ego needs on both sides is what I want to know. It seems like they both want to run the show.
Why didn't anybody in her family, as they would have done in my family, told her years ago, what's with the accent? What the hell are you doing?
In October, I think we're going to go to España to see my family.
Oh,
He's
you're gonna
never
bring
been
him
to Spain.
He's never.
Well, we brought Spain to him for the wedding, but now he's got to go to Spain.
Oh, he's
You're going to kiss me on the cheek and tell me you love me, that I'm taking you back to Spain. Ay, ay, ay. There was no pleasing you.
But bullfighting?
Well, we're not gonna support bullfighting. She'd be like, I have to pee every 5 minutes. I can't believe it.
My family lives in Spain. They live in Mallorca.
Okay.
What time? 12 o'clock? My wife is from Spain. And she said,
Always been a Zara fan. It's, it is a Spanish brand. And so I've known about it for very, very, very long time before I was in this country.
So for you watching on podcast, she put one time she was born in Mallorca, Spain. Then it got changed to Boston, Mass. She had a Spanish themed wedding. So this was really like they were really doing a Lucy and Ricky kind of. It feels like a traveling show. And I don't think that Alec Baldwin, so in addition to his rage, he also supported the innocence campaign of Mumia Abu-Jamal, convicted killer in Philadelphia, Adnan Syed and Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey, Teresa Hallback's killers. So he's happy to support the release of some of these convicted killers. Which makes me think that he's, I'll explain in a second, really a split personality.
Doing more yoga. Okay. He should be doing more yoga.
what kind of? She look like a drug dealer's wife right there, isn't it amazing?
Yeah, she looks like she married to Pablo Escobar.
She does.
Yeah.
She looks like she just got off the plane from Medellin.
I moved here when I was 19 to go to NYU. And from my family lives in Spain. They live in Mallorca. I have 4 kids, but you have to be able to treat each one as if they were only a child sometimes. So I have to have my individual time with each one. We would, when we were in Madrid, we were running together in Retiro, right? Remember, we went to Retiro and we were running. And,
I don't run as much as I used to because I hurt my back, so I run much slower.
That's his way of saying I'm faster than you.
It's really nice. It feels different. It really feels different. But I didn't think it was going to be different, but it feels quite different.
What's the thing that's
It feels different. So that's a little bit, I think you get the picture that they were both really in on that hoax. And I think Alec Baldwin, when he says, I didn't make the slur, I didn't fire the gun, I think it's really a failure to integrate his public persona and his real self, his shadow self. So the Alec Baldwin that you all know and love, the one who's so funny on SNL, he would never point a gun at someone. He would never make that. Alec Baldwin would never make that slur. He would never take part in a hoax. But I mean, this hoax went far. I believe she was featured in a magazine for a Spanish themed magazine, talking all about her Spanish roots. I mean, it went pretty far before it's amazing she wasn't found out sooner. So I think we're going to see the PR offensive continue in this. as for Hannah Gutierrez Reed, I think she's toast. I can't imagine her getting off. The laws in Albuquerque are very clear for that both of these cases fit their definition of involuntary manslaughter. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're both convicted. Really wouldn't. I know it's a shocker in America because rich people have an advantage in every area of our society, including our including our courts. But I think people are tired of this, and I think that interview did him no favors. And I wouldn't be surprised if they show that interview. And I can hear the people screaming in my audience saying, well, he can't admit guilt. His lawyer told him not to say that he had took any part. But there are other ways. There are ways of showing your remorse besides crying on cue. If you want to see an interesting interview, check out John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard. He's given he just starts crying on cue at one point on his channel talking about this. And people who really know guns and familiar with gun safety say that this is an atrocious disregard. Let me see if I can show you one more clip before I go. Hold on, guys. This is from Law and Crime, and this is...
So Steve, I want to get your perspective on...
This is Steve Wolf. He's a gun expert.
On this, are you surprised by the charges against Alec Baldwin and Hannah Gutierrez Reed?
I'm not at all surprised by these charges, and I did recommend to the special prosecutor that these charges be filed.
Why is that?
This was, in my opinion, a case of gross negligence. Any use of firearms in any circumstance carries risks. Guns are inherently dangerous. If they weren't dangerous, they wouldn't be effective. And given that you're using a firearm and you're displaying it around people, there's a very, very high burden of safety placed on everyone on the set. If you have a gun, there's a possibility someone could get shot. We all know that. So there should be no surprise that this accident happened when established gun safety protocols were ignored. They had an armorer. Where was she? Did Mr. Baldwin know that he had an armorer and that she wasn't there? Then why did he take the gun from the first AD? He may as well have been taking it from the craft services caterer. I mean, Mr. Halls has no bearing to decide whether a gun is cold or not because he's not the armorer. And Mr. Baldwin knew that. So really everything that Mr. Baldwin says, in my opinion, deepens the hole for him. And saying like, we're going to fight that. Well, yes, when criminal charges are filed, you have to fight it. Otherwise you're guilty and you go right to jail. So like, that's also a non-statement.
Steve, just to interrupt for a second. You were called by the special prosecutor in this case?
Yes, I had a conversation with Ms. Reeb. She outlined some of the details of the case. I was obviously already quite familiar with it. And she asked if, in my opinion, criminal charges were warranted and against who. And I unequivocally said criminal charges are warranted. A death occurred needlessly as a result of ignoring known safety protocols. That's why Halyna is dead. And that everyone who was in the chain of command, whether they belonged there or not, had criminal liability.
And Jeanette, I'm going to go back to you for a second because...
Okay. So then there's this other part I just want to show you where he's asked about, so Jesse Weber makes, is that who this is? I think this is, am I wrong? He asks if this is going to be a battle of the experts, and Steve Wolf says, Well, it depends how much money. Basically, they pay a defense expert to say a gun can go off by itself, but anybody with any worth any salt will not take that money to say that. But take a listen; it's pretty interesting.
That and could be a potential witness, an expert for Alec Baldwin.
That would, of course, depend entirely on the expert witness budget. However, for anybody upholding an ethical standard, no, that is not plausible. Could it happen? Yes, we could land on the sun at some point, when that technology exists. But right now, based on the FBI examination of the firearm, there was nothing wrong with that firearm. And so I do believe when Mr. Baldwin says that he did not press the trigger, that what he means is he did not intentionally press the trigger. But on a gun like this, if your finger is resting on the trigger and you pull the hammer back and release it, the gun will still fire. The FBI confirmed that. So I don't think that the timing of the charges, the presence or lack of text messages, where the live ammo came from, I don't think any of these things are really relevant to the case. What's relevant is that he pointed a gun at someone and that person died. It's a very low standard in New Mexico for establishing this manslaughter charge. And all of the elements of the case, brought against him are met, in my opinion. So, I think there's a lot of extraneous data being thrown around the case, but it essentially comes down to the first rule of gun safety. All guns are always loaded unless you yourself have personally verified that the gun is not loaded. And then it may be handled as such. And that still doesn't allow you to, to ignore the rule that you never point a gun at anything you don't want to destroy. So he broke, two key rules of gun safety. And that's why Halyna is dead. Text messages, previous stuff, yes, it may be, it may create a flavor around the case, contributing environment, but that's not what killed her. What killed her is that he took a gun from someone who had no business handing it to him, who did not check the gun but told him it was a cold gun, who he knew was not an armorer, nor did he look inside the gun himself. And I am quite sure that if the scene was a suicide scene or contemplated suicide scene and the scene called for him to point the gun at his head, that gun would have been checked. He would have taken different measures than he did when he was pointing the gun at someone else.
So, Aunt Jeanette, you know what I found interesting?
Right. And we know that the day before, he told people to get out of the way and that he didn't want to point a gun at them. Why was it? What happened between the day before and the day after? So a lot of it's been made about where did this live ammunition come from? And I think that mystery is pretty much solved, that it was being used. These guns were being used for trigger practice in between shots. Thank you, Jackie C. If you're watching, hit the like button. Thank you. My audience is better at promoting self-promotion than I am. Thank you, Jackie C. Please hit the like button. Leave me a comment and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave me a 5-star review. My Apple podcast rating is so ridiculously low from people angry with my opinion on things that I feel it's a little unfair. Or of course I do. Maybe it is fair, but I feel it's a little unfair. So if you're kind enough or have the time, please leave me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. I appreciate it. Appreciate it, Jackie C. Thank you. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Does anyone have any questions? Anything I can answer? I know I went through a lot of material. Close-minded people. Thanks, Shari. Yeah. I know I went through a lot of material, but it is a very simple case. And I know it's made more interesting by where did these bullets come from, what happened. And we don't know what happened between Alec Baldwin and Halyna Hutchins, if she rejected him or slighted him somehow. But we know that they, according to Alec Baldwin, not the most reliable narrator though, that they had dinner the night before what happened there. But I think it's all relevant. And so if you're missing, what I'm trying to say is his whole life and his whole behavior up to now is relevant. And I feel it really all led up to this moment. Lakeside Lawyer says, great show. Alex should make it plea. I agree. Just out of guilt, I would have thrown myself on the mercy of the court. I couldn't live with myself, but it's amazing. You need that kind of ego to become a star like Alec Baldwin, but that ego becomes your worst enemy when you've taken Halyna Hutchins' life and you've injured Joel Souza. So your ego will not allow you to accept reality. And for a living, his job is to live in a fantasy world. And he certainly blurred the lines with his wife and his wife's heritage and how they present that to the world. She's still talking in that accent, by the way. What if I did that with Donna? I just kept talking in the Donna accent, diluted for the next 20 years. It'd be wild. But she's still talking in that accent. And they just did a spread in People magazine where Alec Baldwin and Hillary are saying that they're really stressed out. That taking a woman's life has really stressed them out. Unreal. The callousness is something not to be believed. Shari Davis says, I would have no voice. That's true. I'd have no voice by the end of it. But that's what I have for today. Thanks so much for listening, guys. My apologies. I'm getting some new internet soon. Hopefully that'll improve things. And I'll catch you tomorrow. Oh, not tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow at 6 p.m. Hold on 1 minute. 1 minute. So cute. My boyfriend came in saying, do you have a victim impact letter? And I said, no, I'm not talking about the Dan Markel case. Alec Baldwin's trial hasn't happened yet. We haven't heard any victim impact letters yet. So cute. It's Miss Lisa. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it. So I'll see you back. I'm off tomorrow. Have a great President's Day, everybody. And I'll see you Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everybody.